So hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay Humphreys, and I'm the Program Director for Junior Achievement of New Mexico. Thank you for attending our virtual career speaker series. This program is open to junior achievement students across New Mexico. And in this program, we highlight business professionals, entrepreneurs, and innovative thinkers from a variety of industries. Each featured speaker is going to share details about their education, their job, and their career journey. But before we get started, we'll just do a few virtual meeting etiquette reminders. First things first, like I said, this video is going to be recorded and we upload it onto our YouTube channel. For anyone who is not able to attend today, you can feel free to share that link when it comes to you. At this time, if all of our participants would take a second and type your first and last name into the chat box, that'll help us keep track of who was on the call with us today. And if you're an educator or a parent and you have students on the call with you, just let us know how many students there are with you. During the speaker's presentation, please make sure your mics are muted. And if you have questions during the presentation, you can type them into the chat box or you can write them down and you can unmute during the question portion of the event. So today we are so excited to welcome Rachel Sams, Editor-in-Chief for Albuquerque Business First magazine. Rachel, I'm going to mute myself and share my screen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and thank you to Junior Achievement for having me today. Thanks to all of you for being with us today. I'm really excited to talk with you and share a little bit about my career journey. As Lindsay said, I'm Rachel Sams, Editor-in-Chief of Albuquerque Business First. That is a business news, online newsletter, and weekly newspaper for business executives and professionals here in New Mexico. And that is possibly something that you might not have even known was a job. I didn't know it was a job when I was the age that many of you are. And how I got to this job and what has been interesting to me about this journey are some of the things I want to share with you today. So, ever since I was just a really, really small child, I wanted to write. I wanted to tell stories. And I didn't quite know how I was going to do it, but that was always there. I think it came from my dad. He's an English professor and a poet, author, and I think he's the one who passed that on to me. So this dream started very early. One of my earliest memories is of sitting there. I was about 4 years old, trying to write a short story. I could not get the thoughts that I was having in my head out quite right because I didn't quite have the vocabulary words yet for what I wanted to say. I can remember sitting there with my marker and piece of paper and writing over and over the words "no one," but they didn't look right and I couldn't figure out what was the problem. Now I know it's because I was writing them as one word, no un. So I didn't quite have the words yet, but I knew that I wanted to tell those stories. And it actually wasn't too long after that before I had my first published writing. That was the next slide. It is, I actually had a poem published when I was about 5 years old in Cricket magazine, which you all might have read when you were a little younger, maybe. The poem was about pigs. And I used to remember all of it. I don't anymore, but I can tell you the second verse. It was, "We are very nice pigs. We live in a sty. We do our housekeeping, and we are very shy." So not exactly a prize-winning poem for, adults, but I was started on that journey of storytelling. And I continued to write every chance I got. I was also very interested in weather. And one thing that I did in elementary school was when Hurricane Gilbert, which was a big hurricane out in the Gulf, came around, I created a newsletter just with my little green pen on notebook paper, mostly for myself and my friends, about Hurricane Gilbert. It was called the Gilbert Gazette. So kept that writing and research going. I was starting to learn about researching and reporting events. And the next slide will show an amazing opportunity that I got to do that when I was in high school. I went to an incredible high school. It was called the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science. I'm from a small town in Mississippi. This was a state-funded residential high school. You had to go through an application process to go there. And I was lucky enough to get to go there. And work on and edit this amazing literary magazine. I had some writing in it, and I also got to edit other people's writing, which is to help them work on their writing and make it better and make it say more of what they want it to say. Like if they're having those kind of struggles that I had when I was 4 years old and trying to get the words out, an editor can help people do that. So this was a wonderful opportunity to do that. I also was able to get an internship when I was still in high school, actually when I was 15, with my hometown newspaper, the Greenwood Commonwealth in Greenwood, Mississippi. And I was able to get that internship because I happened to know the editor of the paper. So I just asked him, hey, can I come in and interview for an internship with you? And he said, okay, give it a shot. Let's see what you got. And so I came in and did a test, basically writing a test story. They gave me some information to see if I could write a story out of it. And I did. And I interned at that paper for the next 4 summers and just did all kinds of different work. I wrote obituaries, which are stories about people who have passed away. I reported on our city council. I developed pictures in a darkroom, which was how you had to develop pictures at that time. I wasn't very good at it, but I did have that experience, and just wrote all kinds of interesting stories about people in the community where I grew up. I was able to interview them, ask them questions, learn about them, and share their stories with the world. So that was pretty cool. And that next slide will show a little bit of me during that time. This is my high school yearbook photo. So from there, I was able to go on to college. I went to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, which had a really cool creative writing program. And I spent a lot of time in college at the college newspaper, which is the next slide. This is me at the college newspaper office. Like many college newspaper offices, it was in a basement. So not the fanciest environment, but a wonderful environment to learn about writing and reporting, interviewing school officials, interviewing students, telling the students what was going on campus, and being able to have that experience. So I wanted to move along and get even more experience in this cool field of journalism. What I really wanted was an internship at the Baltimore Sun newspaper. Johns Hopkins was in Baltimore. And that's a really big city newspaper. And I said, I want to write for that place because so many people in the whole city of Baltimore read it. So I applied for a paid internship at the Baltimore Sun. I did not get selected, but I said, I still really want this opportunity. What can I do? So I called up the fellow who ran the internship program, who seemed really nice. And I said, hey, is there any way I can work for you this summer? I would even take an unpaid internship. And he happened to say, well, as a matter of fact, I'm the business editor here, handling all the news about business. And my intern for the summer just quit. She got what she thought was a better internship at the Wall Street Journal. And she just said, sorry, see you later. I'm not coming to this internship. So can you write about business? And I thought to myself, wow, that sounds really boring. It sounded like just a bunch of stock numbers and not very interesting. But of course I said, yes, sir, I'll do it, because I wanted to write for the Baltimore Sun. And what I didn't expect was that I absolutely fell in love with business journalism. I got to meet business people doing the most interesting things, specialty veterinary clinics, like veterinary clinics that only served specific populations of pets, and just learn about how they did their work and tell those stories to the world. So that was the beginning of my career in business journalism, thanks to the quitting of another intern. And the next slide will show I was able to finish it all up and get that college degree. So then the question is, okay, now what happens? You graduate from college, and sometimes not everyone wants to hire you because you don't have that much experience yet in the job world. I applied to about 30 jobs, and the position that I found was doing business reporting at the Tallahassee Democrat newspaper in Tallahassee, Florida. So I spent 4 years there learning about that community and telling their stories. Then I moved on to the Baltimore Business Journal, where I had just the most amazing experience of writing about money and law. And I wrote about some of the biggest companies in the world and what they were doing and how that affected other business people in Baltimore. And I wrote about some like small mom and pop businesses too, and how what they were doing affected business in Baltimore. It was just the coolest job ever. And I would probably never have left, but my husband, who is from New Mexico, had decided he was going to try working for his family business and do that and see how it went. And I was ready for a change from Baltimore. I had loved that city, but was ready for a move. I liked New Mexico. And so I started looking around, and there was an opportunity, a job available with my same company at what was then called New Mexico Business Weekly. It's now called Albuquerque Business First. But it was an editor job. So I had to think back to that experience I had had in high school, editing on the literary magazine, helping other people with their work, and think, oh, is this really, is this something I would like to do? Is this something I might be good at? And I thought about some things that had happened recently. I'd actually had some situations where other reporters at the Baltimore Business Journal had come to me when they were having struggles with their work, or maybe they had had an argument with one of the bosses or something like that. They had started coming to me for advice, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And I said, well, maybe this means that I could help other people as an editor. So let me give it a try. So that brought me to this wonderful place of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I have been able here at Albuquerque Business First to share stories of the business community for the business community. And this work is really important to me because, as you know, New Mexico, like I said, is an amazing place. It also faces some big challenges, like many amazing places do. And jobs and creating more well-paying jobs isn't the answer to all of those problems, but it can really help most of those problems, like poverty. It can make a big difference in how good of an experience it is for people to live in New Mexico. So I'm able to lead some of that reporting, to report on some of those issues, bring information about them to the public, to the business community, and lead discussions about that, which has been just a really cool and interesting and fulfilling journey, and one that I would never have thought about when I was sitting at my kitchen table at 4 years old trying to write a story, but has been really rewarding along the way. And one thing that JA always asks speakers to do is to try and leave folks with some thoughts that might apply to them as they start on their career journey. So I thought back about my own experiences and what I've learned. And one thing for me, people often ask if you're in a particular job, they might ask, what is your superpower? And for me, one of my superpowers is that I work really, really hard. I think most of my bosses would tell you that I work harder than most people they know. So working hard alone isn't always enough to get you what you want in terms of the next job, the next opportunity, the next project that you want to work on when you're in the working world. But working hard really helps. I've had times in my career where maybe someone else had more talent or someone else had more experience at something. But as I worked hard and applied myself to that goal that I had, that work ethic usually got me there. I didn't always get there as fast as other people, but it was like a driver that powered me ahead. So hard work is really important. At the same time, it's not too important. Like, it is important, but I have also had to learn not to make it more important than it is. There have been times in my career and my working life where I worked way too hard and too much, and to the point where I wasn't even having very many creative ideas of interesting things to write about and to do because I was so focused on just getting a lot of stuff done really fast. I remember when I moved across the country for this job in Albuquerque. That's an amazing experience to travel across the country, and I don't really expect to do it again because I like it here and I want to keep living here. But I really missed out on it because I was so focused on, I got to get there, I got to get started, I got to get to work. And, it would have been way more fun and might have even resulted in more for me to write about if I'd stopped along the way to like take pictures of all the cool, wacky stuff you see on the roadside. So hard work is really important, but not to work so hard that you don't take in all the amazing things around you and learn from them and be able to reflect those experiences into whatever you do. So thank you all so much for the opportunity to talk to you today. And I would love to hear some of your questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm going to stop presenting. And what I'll do is I will start us off. We have some questions that were submitted via the registration form. So we'll start with this one, and then I'll open it up to students to unmute as well. So question number 1, how did you start in this career and what made you choose this career?
So how I started in this career was really that very first experience of my very first internship at the newspaper where I grew up in Mississippi. And that interested me because I knew that I wanted to write for a living and tell stories for a living. At that time, I thought, oh, I want to be like a famous poet. I want to be like a famous short story writer. But I also knew that that's really hard. There aren't very many of those. And it would be good to also have some skills that are a job that can support you no matter what. So that's why I went for that first internship. And every job that I got along the way helped lead me to the next job. Like having those 4 summers of experience in that first internship led me to have a little experience where I could squeak through the door for that internship at the Baltimore Sun. And then I squeaked through that door for my first job, and it just kind of kept going from there. Ooh.
Excellent.
Erin has a good question. Tell us about how ABF's online presence has grown over the years. Well, it has definitely grown a lot. So when I joined Business First, which was in 2009, we were a weekly newspaper that also did some reporting online. And we still are a weekly newspaper, and the amount of reporting we do online has just exploded. We now do 2 daily newsletters full of headlines for the business community, plus breaking news alerts as other news happens throughout the day and the week. And it has changed because the demand for that online news has changed. We still have many subscribers who, sit back and flip through their paper once a week and kind of take in information that way. At the same time, business people have so many pressures on them and so many difficult decisions to make, especially now during COVID and in a time when so much is changing in the world. They want to know what's going on right away. So they're on those phones all day, scrolling through the news, looking for us to bring them the news that they need to know. So that's why our online presence has grown so much.
Thank you. Would anyone like to unmute and ask a question? Alrighty, we'll go to another one from the registration. What is the easiest? Oh, Everett, did you want to ask a question?
It was a mistake.
All right, never mind. So what is the easiest part of your job and the hardest part of your job?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say the easiest part of my job at this point can be writing just those regular daily stories that happen during the day. It's not that they're like overly simple or easy. It's just that I've done it a lot. I've been writing news stories for almost 20 years. So when there's a pretty straightforward breaking story, like a big company has a new CEO or 2 companies are merging together, often that's I've been through that process so many times of reporting on it that I know how it works, and I can do it pretty fast. With practice too, that comes over the years. You get pretty fast at some aspects of your job. Again, not to say that those stories are like simple or easy, just the experience has made it something that it's a rhythm that I can fall into and get into easily. The hardest part of my job, there are a lot of challenging parts, but one definitely is those times when someone has a complaint about a story. When somebody reaches out to us with a complaint about a news story, what we find out when we take a look at that complaint can vary so much. It can be as simple as, you misspelled my name. We can see that we did that, and we can make that fix and get that fix out there. Sometimes they think something was unfair, and then we have to look at that and see if that was actually the case, and if so, how to remedy that. And sometimes we simply have people who we didn't write the story about them that they would have written about themselves, and that's basically their complaint. They would have told their story in a different way. And so it can be challenging to look at all of the different possibilities and see, okay, is anything here actually wrong? And if so, how should we fix it? The thing that helps always is simply to respond to the person, and to do so as quickly as possible. Sometimes I have to look into things more to find an answer for them, but just to respond, whether they like my response or not, people most of the time are very appreciative that we took the time to think about it and respond, and that we did so in a prompt manner. So those are the things that, when someone is upset or unhappy out there, can make a big difference.
It's great advice. Thank you. The next question, we can either have anyone type into the chat box, just a reminder, or you can unmute, or I can do the next question on our registration. So I'll give everyone a second to see if they have anything to add. Okay, so this is a question, Casilda Gallegos is saying, Rachel, I am thinking, based on your experience, you would encourage students to explore internships and opportunities while in high school and college that would help them secure employment after completing a degree. This helps with having references and experience in the field one would hope to be employed. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. I would definitely encourage that. It is wonderful experience, so that when you are applying for those first jobs in your life, you can show, hey, I have 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, of experience in this field. You have something to put on your resume. I would also, one thing to think about is that an internship or one of those kinds of programs is not just a chance for you to show employers what you have to offer. It's also a chance for them to show you what they have to offer, and for you to decide, for you to get that experience to even be able to say, is this a career that I want to go into? Or maybe I want to explore something else after I've had that internship. And another thing I definitely want to say is that while I took an unpaid internship in high school, that was very common at the time. There are fewer and fewer unpaid internships now, particularly at the college level and beyond. And that's because it's really been found that unpaid internships can be discriminatory. Not everyone can afford to work for free, even if you're getting college credit. So it can serve to reduce the diversity of people who are going into a field, and mean that not everyone gets the opportunities that they should have. So more and more companies are going to paid internships, and that is definitely something that I support.
Thank you. Another question in the chat. Can you talk about other jobs at print/online newspapers, such as graphic design, advertising, and distribution? And then the follow-up is, where are your newspapers printed now?
Yes, those are great questions. Our newspaper has been printed in different places. It's currently printed by Valley Press in Phoenix. So we actually, we go to press a little earlier so that people can get their papers in the mail on Friday. Our newspapers are delivered by the U.S. Postal Service. And yes, there are many different cool types of jobs at media companies, not just reporting news. There are fantastic jobs in advertising sales. So if someone is interested in sales, selling ads for a media company can be a really interesting opportunity. There also are graphic design jobs at publications. So those would be the people who literally put the print pages that you're going to see together, design them, make them look amazing. Those are really cool jobs. And then there are also jobs at the presses too, the places that physically print newspapers. So there are all kinds of jobs at the presses. They could even include like the person who runs the press to the person who does the finances for the press and make sure that they're paying their bills. So there are lots of different opportunities if this field interests you, but if like the writing doesn't interest you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Question from the registration. What has been your biggest influence?
I guess like from when I was a little kid, it would be my dad. He is, like I said, he is a now retired English professor. He was an English professor at Mississippi Valley State University for about 30 years. And he also that whole time was publishing his writing. He's a poet. He's written fiction and essays. And many times he was publishing in like literary magazines so small they didn't pay a fee. Like the phrase was literally paid in copies. And I always joke that like whenever my dad passes away on his tombstone, it will say paid in copies because that was so much a part of his life, publishing in these small magazines around the country. So he has definitely been a big influence on me. A couple of other influences throughout my career. One was definitely the managing editor of the newspaper in my hometown where I had my first internship, the Greenwood Commonwealth. His name was Tom Miller, and that guy, he just let me really run with it. He let me experiment and do a lot of things. When I was about 16 years old, I did a piece of investigative reporting on a local home health agency. Not everyone would have felt comfortable letting a 16-year-old loose on that, but he gave me the training to do that work, and then he let me go for it. So that was a big influence. And also Joanna Sullivan. She is she was the editor of the Baltimore Business Journal when I was there almost 20 years ago. She's still the editor now. And she was the person who really, when I was interested in moving into the editor job here in Albuquerque, she said, you can do this job. Here's what it's all about. You can do it. And here's what it takes to do it. But she's very supportive and always a wonderful mentor.
Excellent. Another question from the chat. Did you ever consider another career not in writing? And if so, which careers and why?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There have been different careers that have sounded interesting to me through the years, but it really always has been writing and journalism. And even at times when like maybe things were hard and I was having a hard time finding the next job, I would sort of consider what other options I was interested in. And it was always journalism. I love that ability to gather facts and to tell stories. And I like it because like if I personally was doing public relations, even if I was doing it for like a company or a cause I really believed in, I would still want to know like all of the other things out there and, learn about those and communicate them to people. So that's what I really like about journalism. I have thought about different kinds of journalism over the years. There was a period early in my career where I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in business journalism. I thought I might really want to be a music reviewer, which sounds really fun and is really fun. There are just fewer and fewer of those jobs at local newspapers now. So I'm glad that I made the decision that I did.
Excellent. So we're going to be cognizant of everyone's time and we're going to start wrapping up. So thank you so much, Rachel, and students that are on the call. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the program. Before we log off, just a few announcements. So following this presentation, you will be sent a post survey. If you could complete that, you will be entered into a drawing to win a Dion's gift card. And then we have a huge shout out to Dion's, who has graciously partnered with Junior Achievement to provide our survey responders, the lucky survey responder who wins the gift card with the Dion's gift card. And so teachers, if you're on the call and you have students behind you, please just make sure that you send that link to them as well so they don't miss the opportunity. We will be deciding the winner on Monday, so you can fill out your survey from any time between now and Monday. Lastly, please join us next week as we start our Women Empowerment Month. that is going to be sponsored by the Jennifer Reardon Foundation. And so next week, we will be starting it off on February 3rd at 1 o'clock, and we will welcome Lisa Eden, Vice President and Chief Information Officer from PNM. So keep an eye on your emails for registration links. Thank you so much, Rachel. See you everyone next week.
Bye. Thank you.